Good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Kulaga, Executive Creative Director of the New York Times live conversation series Times Talks. Welcome to tonight's installment of ScreenTimes, which presents the most eagerly anticipated new films, followed by Q&As with top film talent. I want to give special thanks to the presenting sponsor of ScreenTimes, HBO, and share the following video of coming attractions.
Everybody, we need to act like a happy family.
Anyone showing insufficient happiness will be shot.
This is a disaster. I think you should drop both these two and I'll do it solo.
Wow, someone thinks they're Beyonce.
Can I trust you? Of course you can trust me. To a point, yes.
Watching people melt down is the most satisfying activity.
We aim to please.
And now, please join me in welcoming ScreenTimes moderator Melena Ryzik and our special guests, the screenwriter-director of Little Women, Greta Gerwig, and stars Timothée Chalamet, Florence Pugh, Saoirse Ronan, Eliza Scanlen, and Laura Dern.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and this incredible cast and filmmaker. We're so excited to talk to you tonight. We have a short amount of time, but we're going to get really deep into the conversation, hopefully fairly quickly. Yeah? You guys on board? Do you like the movie? Greta, what I love about this movie is it's not fan fiction exactly, but it sort of is, because in the sense that I can really feel the love that you have for the text and for the characters and for Louisa May Alcott. But at the same time, you kind of take a Cuisinart to the narrative. And so I wanted to start by, tell me how you landed on that decision.
Whoa, it's louder than I thought. Oh goodness. I love this, and in that sense of it being fan fiction. It is like I grew up with these girls. Like they felt like my sisters. They felt like my family. They felt like my memories. I was like the way you do with fiction as a kid. I was a rereader. I read it and then I read it again and again. So it was deep inside of me. And then when I read it when I was 30, I hadn't read it probably since I was 15, and I kind of couldn't believe it. It felt so modern and pressing and fresh, and there were all of these lines that felt like they just were written in neon. They felt so alive, and I had an idea of how I wanted to do it and how I wanted to structure it. And then I started researching Louisa May Alcott as a person, and that's when I realized that was the person I had actually always been like in love with, and that she had been my hero all that time. And I, among the things I discovered, one of the things that I did discover was that she never wanted Joe March to get married. She felt she had to because of the sort of publishing of the day and the audience of the day. But she never got married. She never had kids, but she did keep her copyright, and which is astonishing that a woman in the 19th century knew to keep her copyright. And I thought, and these sort of seeds of her as an author and as a person kind of started to grow. And what I wanted to do was collapse the space between Louisa and Joe, and I wanted to ground it as adults, and then go back in time, because I think it's like this sort of like iconography of Little Women is the girlhood part, and I wanted to kind of have it be something that they were yearning for, that was gone. And I feel like as a grown woman, I'm always walking with my younger self and answering to her, and I felt that the same was true of the March sisters.
Do you feel like your younger self would be in love with this movie?
Yeah, my younger self is pretty happy with how things are going. I feel like my younger self is like, hell yeah. I mean, I mean, yeah, I was. I think she'd be psyched.
The rest of you guys jump in about how your younger selves also would feel if you want to talk about it. Saoirse, you've said that you were terrified when you were playing Lady Bird, and then when you were playing Jo, you were like, bring it. What changed?
I probably doing Lady Bird, actually. I think there was something about that. I think it was a combination of working with Greta, who, it's weird that you're looking at me when I'm saying this, but I really have always, like, properly loved her. Like, there's people in film that I really like and whatever, but, like, there's just always something about Greta where I was like, you're different. And I remember for, like, ages, I was just so sort of psyched, as Greta's younger self would probably say, to be working with her. So it was a combination of that and kind of doing a comedy as well. Just the whole thing was quite terrifying for me. And I think I was, I think just as an actor, I was still kind of in that place. And I think doing that and having such a great time doing it and doing something different, I really kind of went, ooh, okay, well, maybe I'll try this thing now and I'll try this thing. And so for me, like Jo, I knew it was in every way such an honor to play Jo March is like the epitome. It's so fantastic for an actor to get the opportunity to do that, but getting to do it with Greta, and for me it was just like a chance for us to have fun and to just try different things and really, push it when it came to what I was doing, even more than we had on Lady Bird. So I was kind of ready for it and I was excited by it because I was with her.
Florence, you playing Amy, you play either the most misunderstood or the most hated character in the book, depending on your perspective. So did it matter to you if Amy was sympathetic to the audience? Or to yourself?
Characters in general, I don't mind if people dislike characters because I find them totally interesting. With Amy March specifically, when I first got the job, I remember I told my friends that I was in Greta Gerwig's Little Women. They were like, who are you playing, Jo? And I was like, no, I'm playing Amy March. And they were like, oh, I hate her. And I was like, oh, great, cool. But I remember I met Greta and she was so passionate about, obviously, the film, but also saying how she really wanted Amy to be understood, and she really wanted Amy to be bigger than just the pretty one that had lots of skirts and burnt Jo's book and ended up with the guy, which is how people list her. And I think as an actor, what an amazing opportunity to come to a character that's so known and recreate how people think of her. And Greta pulled out her intelligence and her creativity and her drive and her ambition, and also highlighted what it was like to be a woman in that era, which I think is something that maybe Amy hasn't been given that before. And as much as exciting as it is to look at Jo's trajectory and how she went about her life, it's also worth noting that Amy let go of her creativity and she put down her craft because she knew she had to be realistic. And that is, so painful for all of us now to look at, but that's a pretty amazing character arc for an actor to have. And so, yeah, she may be hated, but I feel like we've given her a good argument, and people may be seeing a bit more of themselves in Amy too.
Laura, you had kind of the opposite situation where Marmee is like the most beloved mother in all of noveldom. So did you feel like you wanted to bring, or you guys talk about how you wanted to bring an extra dimension to her? Or was it in the page?
No, very much so. I mean, I'll let Greta speak to it, but she had already been steeped in research, historical research of the real relationship between Marmee, Abigail, and Louisa, and we gained a lot of insight. There's a book called Marmee and Me based on the letters between Louisa and her mother. That first Saoirse and I was huge, and what was incredible is as Greta, in this very revolutionary way, allows this juxtaposition between Louisa's life and the story of the March sisters and Little Women. She gave me and all of us the gift of the mother that really was Louisa's mother that's there on the page, but I hadn't seen the revolutionary America's first social worker, the abolitionist who's complicated, and the kind of mother that would say how angry she is and be honest about her relationship and her life and her worry about the level of poverty they lived in. And that was, I think, a way in for us to feel the humanity as opposed to playing a saint, which I have no idea how to do. She was like, I know who could play a really complicated Marmee. So I feel really lucky that she sees me as I am.
Eliza, you get to be on your deathbed. Is that like actor catnip? Or do you dread it? Do you dread those scenes? Or are you like, hell yeah, bring it?
I feel like I'm developing a kind of pattern with the roles I play. I seem to always die. I'd like to do something a bit different in future. In all honesty, it was, of course, a lot of fun. Dying. A lot of fun for my mum. But yeah, I guess it was the most difficult thing about playing someone sick is to not pity them too much. So it was this fine line between, you know, trying to mimic what it's like to be that sick, but also find the strength within it, which can be hard. And it's really easy to glaze a character like Beth over with I don't know, like Laura was saying, a saint that's slated for death. We didn't want Beth to be just simply that, but something more. And I think Beth in this film really represents an artist in the truest sense, in that she doesn't need anyone else's opinions to make art. She doesn't need her art to exist in a public sphere. She does it for herself. And I think her death is a very noble death, and she takes it in her stride. And while she's angry, she, you know, learns from her mother that life's too short to be angry. And she, in a way, her death, her sickness allows her to have a kind of spiritual advancement. And also she can exist in, I guess, in a similar space to what kids exist in. She kind of doesn't ever let go of her childhood, which is so lovely. And in that way, she's the heart of the film.
Timothée, you're up. I felt like you were talking about the modernity in the film. I felt like you really brought this very 21st century sense to Laurie. Like, I could totally imagine this guy's Instagram, right? Didn't you guys? So did you think of him as part of his time period, or did you think of him, you know, in a more modern sense?
No, I thought of him in the time period.
I want to talk about the pacing of the language. I want to talk about the pacing of the language because, Greta, you were careful about how people said their lines and the sort of rhythm of it and the way that it overlapped. Can you guys all talk about what that was like to create and put on screen?
Well, when I was writing the script, I did go back to the text and tried to treat it as much as possible with reverence, and I wanted them to say the words that are so famous, and I wanted them to say them as they were written, but I also wanted to say them with so much speed and so much life, and there were very specific overlaps that I had written into the script that they all worked very hard to achieve. And some of my favorite scenes were the scenes where there's about 8 people talking, and it's all kind of, it's like a passing off, because to me, it's like they got to work as a company of actors where there's a group strength which is separate from individual strength, and I always think it's really exciting to see actors do that. Yes, I don't know. Was there another thing?
I can add to that. That's like Greta, like that's her. I feel like that's she didn't you know, I love that Greta says in period films, people don't know what to do with their bodies because it seems like no one knew how they were carrying themselves at the time. And I feel Greta was very clear in that, in the rehearsals even, that she wanted it to be chaotic, people falling over each other, the girls feeling like young people with youthful abandon. And we don't see that anymore because of Instagram, because of shit like that, where people are so self-aware, everyone's little professionals, young brands, whatever. And it's so nice to see in this movie, young people, girls, boys, being young. And we don't really see that anymore. And Greta really get at the heart of that. And I think that earnestness, that sincerity, I think it breaks through all the cynicism of all the self-serious shit we see all the time.
And to talk more about the movement, you have a dance background. I heard that you guys, the dance sequences, you guys were actually dancing to Bowie. Is that right?
Yeah, well, often. I mean, I knew Timothée and Saoirse were both really great dancers, and
Timothy's a great dancer. I'm like a Muppet dancing.
You're selling yourself short. You're a great dancer.
I'm a great dancer.
But I knew. I mean, in the book, it has Laurie and Joe dance wildly up and down the halls, and I had been looking for a hallway when I was location scouting, and then I just kept coming back to this location because I liked it, and then I saw it at night, and I realized, oh, you could set the dance outside on the porch, and you could see the party through, and then anyway, my choreographer Monica Bill Barnes is wonderful, and I had her ground the dances in kind of traditional dances of the time, but I wanted them to dance to, not just them, but everyone in the movie is dancing to, David Bowie or The Cure or Nirvana or James Brown. It's because I feel like even if you're doing some kind of traditional American dance, but you're dancing to modern music, you hold your body differently because to them, those were jams. To them, they were like, yes! Oh, you played it! You could imagine, in a 19th century dancing, somebody drinking too much, mulled wine and sherries and being like, play the one! Play it! No! Play the quadrille! But I feel like, I always think people I feel like in period pieces that are films, often it's everybody's walking around saying I'm in a period piece. And I was but that's not how anyone lives their lives. We don't think of ourselves in a period piece right now, but in 300 years, they'll be like, good sir. I don't know.
This is not a question. This is what they were like backstage, guys, also, by the way. This is not a question I would normally ask on a panel full of mostly women, but in this case, I feel like it's appropriate. I want to talk about the hair in the movie. Do you guys want to know about how they chose the hairstyles for each character?
Oh, the hair, hair! The hair actually, speaking to period pieces, 19th century hair, 1860s hair is usually, in my mind, really bad. It's that sort of greasy middle part that looks a little somebody's gonna be a bad nurse or something. But I found all these references. There's this great photographer, Julia Margaret Cameron, who was a photographer in England in the 1860s, and she took these amazing photographs of girls, and they have messy hair, and they're wearing loose clothes, and they just look like girls, They just kind of have these expressions that are completely alive, and so we used a lot of those photographs for their hair. The way it looked and felt, it's all coming undone. And then also paintings were really helpful, particularly Winslow Homer, because unlike photographs, portraiture was always so, formal. But paintings, you could kind of get that sense of messiness and of life. And I loved all the hair. I loved all the hair. I actually will show you, but these beautiful hair and makeup tests we did, hair and makeup camera, we were testing, because we got to shoot on film, which was wonderful, and we were testing the different lenses and the different filters, and they were running around in the fields, and it's it's the most beautiful footage, and it was just instantly alive, and and I had hair jealousy of all of them. Is that what you wanted to know?
They were also, a lot of them were either wigs or hair extensions. So they were made by this amazing wig maker, Peter Owen, who's from the UK, and he works with Ivana, who was our head of department. And he's been putting wigs on my head since I was about 12. And it's great because you don't feel like there's anything on you. It was so beautiful. And like, if you look at all of our hair as well, it's all sort of tied into Marmee. With our costumes, with our hair, there's always some sort of thread that leads you to Marmee. And if you look at her costumes, all of the colours in her costumes are the colours that we have as individuals. So it was very emotional, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The hair and the costumes.
Yeah, it was all she had. They each sister has their own color, and Marmee always had each of the colors in her, and her hair was like a combination of all of the different colors, because we really felt that Marmee is in each of them, and yeah, I mean every detail was very beautifully thought through from this creative team, which was with the costumes was Jacqueline Duran, who's an absolute genius, and she kind of oversaw all of this.
So there have been like, I think 7 movie versions of this movie. For those of you who grew up with this book, and I don't know if that's all of you on stage or not, but tell me, why did you think that you wanted to have this movie in the world now?
Because, did you see the movie? I mean, I could give another answer for people who hadn't just seen it.
I remember asking Greta that, like, and I would do literally anything because I wanted to work with Greta in anything. But it was like, well, why? And she said, to me, nobody complains when an excellent version of something is made.
Well, that makes me sound... I feel like, in the process of making a movie, you have to talk to a lot of people. The first person I talked to was Amy Pascal, and I went into her office and I told her why I wanted to do this. Then I had to talk to the head of the studio, then I had to talk to all the actors. I have to get everyone on board, and I just go person by person, and I imagine the most confident person I can, speak as them, and then I leave and I'm like, oh my God, what did I promise them? But yeah, no, I mean, I go into the head of the studio and I'm like, people will go. It's wonderful. And I'm like, oh, I hope. But it's no, I mean, in all seriousness, though, I felt the reason contained was there were so many things, but I truly feel that. This book, which was written 150 years ago, the initial printing sold out in 2 weeks. It's been translated into 52 languages. It's never been out of print for 150 years. Everyone from Simone de Beauvoir to Elena Ferrante to J.K. Rowling to Patti Smith calls it their book, and they don't do that because she marries Professor Bear. That's not why we love her, and that's not the thing. And I feel like there's a straight line from what she did to what I'm able to do now. And I felt like I wanted to make a movie that answers the call to authorship and that says you can write it down and it counts for something. And I felt like I wanted to make it big, and I was aided in that project by Amy Pascal, who fought beside me the whole time so that we could shoot on location at Concord in the place that it happened, that we could shoot on film, that we could do it with this glorious cast, because I felt like it deserved to be as big and as tall as any other film, because I felt like it was an American classic epic feminist tale, and I felt like it could be big.
I think we're going to end on this one note. The other thing that I really love about the movie is that it really highlights people's relationship to creativity. And we've seen a lot of movies where that celebrate an artist's relationship to usually his art, and a famous artist, and very few movies that talk about the sort of everyday quotidian relationship that you have to making something, for the joy of making it, for the passion of it, for the divertingness of it. And I wondered if you guys could all talk about your connection to that in the film, and then we'll wrap it up.
I'll go really quick. Just that within the lens of Laurie, that the prescription is to be a wallflower, or not prescription, but it can be, and what an extraordinary experience, starting with Laurie here, but with Florence and Eliza and Saoirse, who I already knew, and Greta, who I already knew, but these are brilliant people. If I have daughters one day, not even, if I have kids one day, they gotta see this, because this is an excellent, worthy movie.
Beautiful. And just, like all iconic and great literature, we continue to investigate what was given to us. We do it with Shakespeare over and over again. And yes, we've had 7 versions, and there is revolution everywhere you look in this movie. And there is a film about what it means to be an artist, and there's a film about identity, there's a film about choices, there's a film about women and money. I've not seen any of those movies within all that was laid out, as well as so many other themes that the other films have looked at, but that Greta put her lens at this time, at this moment, on this story. I feel blessed to be part of it. I'm learning every day. Every time I see it, I see something new that's radical and inspiring to me about what it means to be an artist and what it means to be a mother, and what it means to be a compassionate man. It's just a continual gift. So thank you, Greta Gerwig.
I also everything that they said, and also what I noticed when I watched the movie for the second time at our premiere the other night is that so much of it is about kindness between men and women, and the gift of kindness and goodness and patience and support with one another. And that was something that we all experienced, I think, as co-workers on this. And we were led by Greta. But within our group, within our family, especially because we had so many scenes where we literally had to go, that's the word I'm supposed to come in on, that belongs to Eliza's line, and then I come in, and then you come in there. So we had to be one completely. And I had never had an experience quite like that before. And so I think the story of Little Women, but also our experience on the movie, was one of support, mutual support between all of us, actors and actresses, and that's an incredible gift that we've gotten from this film as well.
You summed it up.
Oh,
Mic drop.
Mic drop. All right. Thank you, guys. You've been a terrific audience. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.